I'm a very lucky man. I've spent the last 10 years or so running around the world talking about Shakespeare, writing about Shakespeare, performing Shakespeare. And what I would like to do this evening for the next hour or so before some questions is take you through some of the discoveries I've made. The first and foremost was blindingly obvious once someone showed it to me. That Shakespeare's plays were written to be performed. That they are not books to be read or indeed studied, but they are manuals on how to perform his plays, these great works of theatre, now so-called great works of literature. And I didn't realize this until, it was almost too late. I didn't realize this until I started acting him, which was a couple of years after I started studying him. When I started studying him, it was in a book on the page. It was Macbeth. And a couple of years later, I was given King Lear. And about the time I was given King Lear, I was told about the way that Shakespeare wrote, that he wrote in a particular type of poetry, and this particular type of poetry was called iambic pentameter. And I put my hand up to my teacher and I said, excuse me, miss, what is this iambic pentameter? And she said, well, it's a line of poetry and it has a particular rhythm to it. And it goes, de-dum, 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 de-dum. And I said, well, that's great. Is there iambic trimeter? And she went, yes. And I said, well, is there iambic duometer? And she went, shut up, Ben. As did the rest of my schoolmates. I did not know until I started acting it that yes, iambic pentameter, the style of poetry that Shakespeare and many others wrote in, is a line of poetry that has a particular rhythm to it, and that rhythm is a de-dum, 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 de-dum rhythm. But I did not know that one line of iambic pentameter naturally fills the human lungs. That this rhythm is a rhythm that we carry with us every single day of our lives. That it's a rhythm that we still hear today. I went to town to buy a coat today. I went to town to buy a coat today. I went to town to buy a coat today. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. It's not just the heartbeat of us, it's the heartbeat of modern English as it was the heartbeat of early modern English. One of the greatest examples I always come to in Shakespeare of him writing in this rhythm. Sonnet 18. One of the most regular of the 154 sonnets that he wrote, starts with the question. And by the way, I'll always talk, when I teach or when I run acting workshops, I talk about thoughts rather than sentences. We write in sentences, we speak and think in thoughts. And the first thought is a question. And the poet, the lover, asks, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? And, as you'll notice, the rest of the poem is an answer to that question, an answered answer, if you will, because there is no full stop in this early version of the sonnets from 1609. Let me read it to you. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometime declines by chance on nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. It's a beautiful little poem. It's an English sonnet, so there's 14 lines. And these 14 lines have 10 beats in them. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? It's in iambic pentameter, and we know it's in poetry partly because it's in this nice little box shape, and there's capital letters at the beginning of every line. And because it's a classic English or Shakespearean sonnet, we've got a lovely A, B, C, D rhyme scheme. Day, May, temperate, dut, shines, declines, dimmed, if it were there, untrimmed, fade, shade, oast, grost, and then a rhyming couplet at the end, C and D. And the thing about the iambic pentameter, about this de-dum rhythm, is that it gives you a clue, an acting note. Some people will read this poem and say, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? And they're going against the natural rhythm that Shakespeare wrote in. It's not shall I. I can't decide whether I will or not. No. The iambic rhythm, the de-dum rhythm, is pushing you towards the I. Shall I compare thee? Not her, but thee. And not you either, eh? Shakespeare had that dissimulation too. Tu and vous as in French, the formal and informal versions of you. Same as Shakespeare's time. Thee is the informal version of you. So he's being very intimate, very tender with the person that he's talking to. And fair enough, because he's asking her, well, let's say it's a her, could be a him. He's asking her, shall I compare thee? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? And the natural rhythm is pushing you away from the less important syllables. And then, yeah, as I said, the rest of that beautiful poem is an answer. And he goes, well, you know what? I'm not going to compare you to a summer's day because, you know what? Summers are really hot and it rains and you sit and you're in the field with a picnic and then there are ants all over it. You know what? Summer's just, it's not good enough. And actually, you're more beautiful than summer. In fact, you're so beautiful that I'm going to write your beauty into a poem. And this poem is going to live beyond your lifetime and beyond my lifetime. In fact, this poem is going to live forever. It's going to live as long as men can breathe or eyes can see. And so long lives this poem, and this will give life to your beauty. And just so we're absolutely clear, someone once said to me, you know, how can you tell the difference between poetry and prose? And prose is just a sort of unstructured version of theatrical writing that Shakespeare gives. And I said that poetry starts with a capitalized letter at the beginning of every line, and it looks kind of columny. It's a nice bit of prose for much ado about nothing. And as a wit recently said to me, prose is the one that goes to the end of the page.